America is in deep, deep trouble. You know that, I know that, and today we're going to talk to a gentleman who's written about it, and his name is Tom Hughes. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Gary. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. And, you know, America is crying out for help. You, as a pastor, teacher, a prophecy writer, you're very much interested, and even more than that, you are involved in what's happening in America today.
Yeah. So I look at what's going on in America, and man, we have an absolute mess. I think of my dad. My dad is almost 90 years old this year, 89. And we've had many conversations about the way America used to be. And I remember growing up as a kid in the 60s and riding my bicycle down the street and going to the hobby shop, going for ice cream, going to the hamburger place, whatever. And it was a different world even in the 60s, as much as the 60s had problems. But you fast forward to where we are now, and there are some serious problems. I remember in the 1970s in high school, there's a song that was real popular. You might not remember the song, but some of your viewers will. It was called "Smoking in the Boys' Room." And I remember that song. It spoke to, that was a real problem in the 1970s. Could you imagine now, in schools, if that was the issue, that was the only issue, that was how bad things could be? Things are so far beyond that. We have radical agendas that are given by just coming from different unions and organizations, forced upon teachers. A lot of the teachers don't want to teach these things. Sex education to kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and not just sex education, but really perverted things that the Bible says this is evil. So we see this starting in schools. We see it in politicians. The things are coming out of Washington, which we'll get to. Things that are coming from judges, things coming out of Hollywood. And you start looking across the board, and there's issues.
So we know that Christianity is no longer welcomed in the public school system at all. In fact, quite the opposite, right?
Yeah, definitely not. So we remove God from the public school system for all practical purposes. We can't really remove him, but back in the 1960s. And when you have a void, a spiritual void, guess what? That void's going to be filled. That vacuum is going to be filled with something. And since we're talking about spiritual things, it's going to be filled with those things that are demonic. And that is what has happened. I've also heard this about, somebody once said, you can attempt to remove God from the schools, but as long as there's math tests, God's always going to be involved because some kid is going to cry out, "Oh, help me, God." So you might think you got rid of prayer, but still we see the reality of it is there's this vacuum that was filled, and it says if God has said, "Okay, if that's what you want, I'll step back and leave you to your own devices," and that seems to be where we are.
Now, many of you have heard Tom talk before, but Dr. Tom Hughes has a wonderful church out in California, and let's just take a little break for a moment, an aside, and I want you to tell people about your church and what it stands for, who it represents, because it's in California. A lot of us think of California as over the hill. It is out of sight. It's gone. But there are Christians in California.
Well, it is partly gone. I mean, there's issues there, right? But still, what people don't understand in the rest of the country is that California has the second most conservatives out of any state in the country. I think the only state that has more is Texas. So there's still a lot of conservatives and a lot of people that actually go to church. It just so happens that California is dominated by Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Francisco, Hollywood, and in that, not only are those the populated areas, those also happen to be the areas with a whole lot of money, and they have all of the media attention.
Right.
So because of that, what you're hearing out of California, it does shape the entire state. But in the state, there are an enormous amount of conservatives. Where I live, it's a highly conservative area. And also, I find this interesting. Even though I'm in California and I know what is said about California, I agree. We got issues, but so does Minnesota and New York
Right.
and Vermont and Virginia. There's issues in this country. At the same time, I have friends that are pastors and they preach Bible prophecy and they live in Southern California. And some of the most prominent voices in Bible prophecy right now are actually coming out of Southern California. And I think that is really strengthening for me, but it might just be because California is so dark. God says we need to have brighter lights there or stronger lights that speak to what is happening in this world.
Have you ever heard of San Jacinto, California? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. That is where 412 Church is located. That's where Tom preaches. That's sort of your base of operations,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it is.
And a wonderful, I've been there, and the people I met there are absolutely wonderful people at your church.
Yeah, they even let me stay there, so they haven't kicked me out yet. So I think, okay, that's good. Well, our church, the name 412 Church, people, they wonder how'd you come up with a name like
Right.
that. And I've been accused of everything. You being the Antichrist and all these things because your church is a numbered church.
Oh, boy.
But it comes from 3 Bible verses: Acts 4:12, Hebrews 4:12, and Ephesians 4:12, to win, disciple, and send. Acts 4:12, there's no other name under heaven by which you can be saved. Hebrews 4:12, the word of God is sharper than a two-edged sword. Ephesians 4:12, we have the equipping of the saints for the ministry. And so we look at those things: win, disciple, send. That's what we do. But in our church, people get the Bible. I talk about sin. I talk about judgment. I talk about Jesus coming again. In fact, every Sunday evening, every week, we have a message regarding Bible prophecy, and that's. But I believe that is the only thing that's going to right our country is the ministry of the Word
Amen.
and the truth.
And the reason I had Tom go into some detail about his church is because even in California, there are doctrinally pure churches that actually teach Bible prophecy. And you got to hand it to Tom because he's holding up his end. And we praise the Lord for your presence out there.
It's great. It's great to be able to do anything. I look at Bible prophecy, and I know God has equipped me like you to be able to speak to these things. And we're supposed to be watchmen on the wall. That's what God tells. All pastors, in a sense, are supposed to be watchmen on the wall. And so I look at this and go, well, we talk about the first coming of Christ, but we are also supposed to be helping people to watch for the second coming of Christ.
Now, before we came on today, Tom and I were talking about what's happening in America. And in 2 Thessalonians, there's a chapter that talks about the coming of the Antichrist system, the Antichrist himself. And 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 10 says that he's going to come with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause shall God send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. And those words actually hurt when I read them. Mm-hmm. Because today there is strong delusion, and there are a lot of people out there believing a lie.
Yeah, people are they're believing all kinds of lies. But I find this passage especially interesting because they would not receive the love of the truth. And so right now we have a country, let's just take Washington alone. Don't need to look further than that. People do not want the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. As soon as they hear it, they completely deny it.
Right.
And then they get into some conversation. Well, that's your truth. Our truth is, well, how can you have two different truths? So we have the Bible, but they don't want to receive the Bible. They don't want to receive righteous standards. They don't want to live by these things. They do not receive the love of the truth. Ultimately, it's a rejection of the Lord. So we watch what's happening in Washington. We watch the different hearings that go on with Congress, and you think, these people are absolutely nuts. How do they even think like this? These are people who are running our country. And you think, how could they make decisions like this? Or why did they not receive this when everything is given to us? We have the facts on this, and suddenly, well, the facts don't matter. Don't confuse me with the facts. Don't confuse me with the truth. And we live in a world, Gary, that it appears we have been given over to a delusion, which is what 2 Thessalonians says. God says, I will do that. I will give them over to a strong delusion. And man, are we living in the place of a strong delusion. that delusion is only going to get stronger.
What about the school system? You talk about strong delusion, and our children are being raised not to recognize the common relational differences that establish society. For example, the common definition of male and female, for example, has been totally blurred over. Anything that would create a stabilizing foothold in society is being slowly but surely erased in the education system. But it's not just the education system, it's in the business world, it's in politics, everywhere. What is called delusion in the Bible really is, I think, something more than delusion. It's kind of like the eradication of all the principles that have stabilized America for the last few centuries.
It is blurring the lines, the lines, excuse me. If we take kids in the educational system, so me coming from California, I think California may be leading the nation in this regard in the area of depravity and just bizarreness. When you look at the decisions that are forced upon public school teachers, and again, I know a lot of people in the public school system that are teachers or maybe work in administration who even attend our church, who love the Lord and want to be able to stand up for righteousness. But some of the things they're told that they have to teach, that there are more than two genders. I heard someone recently say, I know exactly what I can do with the amount of genders that there really are. I can make a sandwich. There's only two genders, male and female, and that's it.
Yeah.
There isn't more, but we have this being told to us and forced upon us that there are more than two genders. And if you speak against that, if you say, no, there's only male and female, there's not more than two, then suddenly you're a bigot, you are a hater, you're labeled, you are actually going to be marginalized. In the school system, you will be. Through the media, you're going to be. As a politician, you're going to be.
Absolutely.
On Twitter, you're going to be banned. You're going to be, you look what's happening with conservatives and the whole attempt to just shut down conservatives, the whole censorship. So these things are happening, and they're not just happening in schools, but kids are being targeted, but it's happening throughout all of society.
We have, as usual, when we interview someone here at Prophecy Watchers, we offer their writing, their teaching. We have some DVDs here, America and the New World Order, 4-disc study aid. America and the New World Order. You know, the New World Order, what does that mean? We've heard that kind of bandied about now for decades. New World Order. Be very, very afraid New World Order is coming. What is that exactly?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. I deal with it a lot in the DVDs, but also in the book that I wrote along the same title. And I go back to H.G. Wells and then George Orwell's book 1984. I deal with such things as the Bilderberg Group and the Club of Rome, and I bring facts into it. What I didn't want to do was sensationalize certain groups are called, part of the New World Order, the Illuminati. So I actually deal with the facts, where these names came from, what they really are. I deal with the Pope and certain comments that the Pope has made. I deal with climate change laws also in that. But when you look at the whole New World Order, a lot of people will just immediately repel against it and say, well, there is no such thing, you're just a conspiracy nut. Well, that's not the case. The Bible is very clear. There is coming a new world order. There's going to be a global system. And the attempt at this global system has been going on all the way since the book of Genesis with the Tower of Babel. When you had Nimrod, who was building the Tower of Babel, and he's at the head of it, and he wanted all the people to stay within his city limits, if you want to, or country limits, whatever you want to call them. He had his system, his world order. God looks at the people, and they're building a tower to heaven. God comes down, he confuses the languages, and all the people are scattered to the four corners of the earth based upon their language that they spoke. So they're all separated. Well, ever since man has been separated, man has been attempting to get back together and have one voice, to build a new world order, to want to head towards this globalist agenda. And we see it in the Bible. The Bible's very clear. Revelation chapter 13, we have a new world order that is coming. Revelation chapter 17, we have a new world order that's coming. There's going to be 10 kings, or I would even call them 10 elitists, 10 elite rulers that are going to be coming, that are going to control the wealth of the world, what people can buy or what and sell. They're going to be controlling all these different things. I believe climate laws even feed into that. And at the top of that, they're going to place their leader known as the Antichrist. But the Bible tells us this is the direction it's going. It's not some wild conspiracy. We can figure out, Gary, if we just look at the Bible and take the Bible for what it says, we can start to see, okay, I know which direction this is going. I can make sense of what's going on in Washington. Now I know why there's a massive movement of people who hate Trump. And now I also know why there's a massive movement of people who are going, wait a minute, we don't like this whole globalist agenda that's coming out of Europe and has also affected America. We can understand why we have the immigration problems that we have too when we look at the Bible and we look at what the Bible says regarding the second coming of Christ.
Now, when the second coming of Christ actually happens, it's going to be maybe the most climactic event in the history of the world. Then I'm talking about his coming in glory at the end of the tribulation period. We see events in the world today, bit, by tiny bit, that are pulling us, they're shaping us into what the world looks like when the Bible talks about it. I mean, and it talks about the various countries in the Middle East. It talks about Russia. It talks about moral decline and just craziness, and we're seeing that kind of a system develop right now. And it, on the one hand, encourages us to look for the Lord. On the other hand, we have the eternal cry of the Christian: "How long, O Lord?" We're watching these things happen, and it looks to us like the Lord could return very, very quickly to begin to set things right.
Oh, yeah. It looks like, I keep thinking like that. How much longer? I can't believe we haven't been raptured yet. What in the world is going on? But if we take Bible prophecies, there are over 800 Bible prophecies regarding the second coming of Christ. Many of those will be fulfilled in the millennial kingdom, but at the same time, we take things like the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke chapter 21, where Jesus is asked the question by his disciples just before, this all happens just before he's going to be betrayed, within a few days before. So he's asked the question, what is the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Mm-hmm. After he answers the question, he also deals with the question of the destruction of the temple. But what's the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Jesus is there with them. So they're saying the sign of your second coming and the end of the age that we live in, or when you return. So you start looking at things. Jesus gave a breakdown of the signs. He says, the first thing he says is, beware of false Christs. Many are going to come in my name. They're going to deceive you. In that, we have what's happening within the churches of America, where pastors don't want to teach the truth about sin anymore. They don't want to teach about judgment. They won't even go to the place of telling people they need to be forgiven, because they don't want people to be afraid or start to think, you mean there's something wrong with me? They're afraid they're going to offend people. Yeah. So they won't even talk about that. We have doctrines of demons that have entered into the church. But then Jesus went on to give several different signs. There will be wars and rumors of wars. Nation will fight against nation. And there will be pestilence and earthquakes in various places. And then on down the list. There will be lawlessness will abound. The love of many will grow cold. So we look at these things and you start to think, okay, let's just take a few of them. We just take the wars and rumors of wars. Right now, the wars and rumors of wars are so extreme that way more than they ever were before. In this regard, especially, now is the threat of a complete annihilation of a country, of a kingdom, with a war and rumor of war. We didn't have that 100 years ago. There would be a threat. We want to eliminate you, but now, just with one bomb, you could eliminate an entire country. That wasn't possible 100 years ago. And you look at it, Jesus likened all of the various signs in the sense of birth pains upon a pregnant woman. Jesus himself said, this is the beginning of sorrows. That's a term or a phrase likened to birth pains and a pregnant woman. So they're going to grow in frequency, they're going to grow in intensity. So the wars and rumors of wars, those are growing in frequency and intensity, nuclear in that regard. When we think of nation against nation, another sign Jesus gave, again, like birth pains upon a pregnant woman, growing in frequency and in intensity. Nation against nation, the Greek word is ethnos. We get our English word ethnic, means people group. So right now, what do we have? We have people group against people group. So it's grown so vastly like birth pains. Now we have massive immigration problems all over the world that are literally changing the dynamics and the shape of continents and countries. Look at what we're dealing with in our own country.
Right.
This is people group against people group. Jesus said this will be so enormous, it'll be like birth pains. But also the people group against people group, nation against nation, speaks to parties. So now you look at the nationalists, globalists, the left, the right, and we are watching this people group against people group. You look at America, we look what's going on in the halls of Congress, and we go, wow, things in this country, my personal assessment, have never been this bad before, other than perhaps during the Civil War. And so we're looking at what's taking place here. I believe our country is in dire straits, but I also believe this, and this will really bother some of your viewers. I'm not saying this to bother them, but America as we know it will be eliminated one way or another before Jesus returns, because it has to be. It can't be the great sovereign nation that it has been for the globalist agenda and the Antichrist be able to have the control he's going to have.
To destabilize the world is Satan's prime directive, I think.
Yes.
And we are the world's great stabilizer at this point in time. And but the Chinese are coming on strong. The Russians are coming back again very strongly. Other countries have developed high-tech weapons of war. More and more nuclear nations coming online all the time. And then there's E.T. out there, principalities and powers, rulers of darkness.
There you go.
And not to mention all the developments in artificial intelligence and the technologies that can create absolute havoc, clear the decks for the Antichrist, folks. For just a moment, let's pause and tell everybody about an upcoming prophecy conference in Palm Springs, California, and you are at the helm of that.
Yes. So I put together this conference with my team in the Palm Springs area. Again, go to California, find out there are some conservatives and Bible believers in California. But what we did is we picked the area of Palm Springs, greater Palm Springs area, for the purpose, a couple of different purposes. One of the reasons is I wanted a venue that was secular. Because I've had them at our church before. I've gone and spoken at many conferences at churches before, but I wanted a secular venue so the skeptic might say, I want to go there. We picked a resort that is absolutely beautiful. We have 16 world-class speakers that are going to be there. Gary, you are one of them. And I look at it, and it's over 3 days. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the end of June. And it is in an absolutely beautiful area. It's one of those areas where people can say, man, I'm looking forward to coming here.
June 28th through 30th of this year, 2019. Dr. David Reagan, Jan Markell's going to be there, Billy Crone. A lot of people are coming. Ed Heinzen, by the way, I'm glad to see he's coming because that man has so much information that he's got to share.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat. We picked some people that are a lot smarter than me, you being one of them. But I also picked people, when I went through it with my team, is people who are not just smart, but they're able to, in the words of J. Vernon McGee, get the cookies off the shelf wherever the kids can get them. We want the common person to be able to have the aha moments. We're covering a vast array of topics. I'm flying in someone from Israel that's going to be there. Hormuz Sharia from Iran Alive is going to be there. My Egyptian friend James Cadiz will be there. I wanted to bring in a variety of things so we can get a different perspective and understand culturally what is happening in different areas and how it all connects to Jesus coming again, and I believe coming soon.
And always, when you come to a prophecy conference like this one, you get to share your ideas with the ideas of others who believe in the same way that you do and who are hungry for information. That's June 28th through 30th, 2019, Palm Springs, California. Here is the internet address you need to remember, hopeforourtimes.com, right?
Hopeforourtimes.com, yes.
And you can just pull that up and get all the information you need. And who should people contact if they really are serious about coming and want to get signed up?
Well, they can go to that website, hopeforourtimes.com, and if they want to talk with somebody, contact somebody, they can just write on there, contact us. And my assistant, Craig, who you know,
I do.
He'll answer any emails or questions that anybody has. He does it all the time, and he's really the one behind the scenes putting so much of this together. Gary, I look at this also. Here's the thing: is I have Jan Markell, a Jewish believer, is going to be there. Olivier Melnick from Chosen People, a Jewish believer, is going to be there. David Tal, he's a Jew. And I'm having his perspective. I wanted a few more guys to come too. And I want to have, what's the perspective of a Jewish person? What's their perspective on what's going on in the world? Let me hear what you think is going on over in Israel. And he's a wonderful guy. I love engaging in conversations with him. He's not against anything that we speak. In fact, he totally gets it. And I'm looking forward to having these different people come.
Now, let's tell everybody how they can get your books. We've got them. America's Coming Judgment. Where is Our Hope? The DVD series we talked about a minute ago, 4 DVD set, America and the New World Order, the book, America and the New World Order. And as we do here at Prophecy Watchers, we put things together in packages. We have Tim LaHaye's book, Target Israel. We have Tim LaHaye's book, Who Will Face the Tribulation? They are real classics. And Bill Koenig's book, Revealed, which, by the way, if you haven't read Revealed, what a surprise. He has a way of looking at Bible prophecy that's different from anybody else on earth. Now, these books, these 6 items that we have, books and DVDs, the DVDs, the book, plus 3 bonus books for your gift of $60, free shipping anywhere in the U.S. Go to prophecywatchers.tv, scroll down in the online library, and you're going to find this offer. And by the way, we have the information on the Hope for Our Times conference. If you want to know anything about it, contact us through the web. We'd be glad to give you the info. And guess what?
What's that?
We are out of time.
Man, that went fast.
It went fast, and I have several more topics that I want to cover with you. We didn't even scratch the surface, but we'll be back, and we're going to do a second program with Tom Hughes of 412 Church, San Jacinto, California. A unique church, a unique man, and he's got a calling from the Lord. I really and truly love to hear him preach, and hope you join us at that conference.
Great. Thank you, Gary.
Tom, let's do it again. I'm Gary Stearman. You know, things are happening so fast that we can barely keep up with them, but we try. We're watching. You be watching too. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.